The shrill ring of her phone shattered the quiet of Nina Carter's tiny apartment at 5 in the morning. She grabbed it from the nightstand, her heart racing with worry. Her business partner Claire's name flashed on the screen. "Nina, thank goodness you answered." Claire's voice sounded strained and hoarse. "I need your help desperately. I have the worst case of food poisoning and I cannot leave my bathroom for more than 5 minutes. What do you need?" Nina sat up, already mentally preparing for whatever crisis was coming. "I was supposed to pick up Mr. Patterson from the airport at 7. He is flying in from Seattle for the Riverside Hotel event consultation." Claire paused to groan in discomfort. "If we miss this pickup, we lose the contract. This man is particular about punctuality and first impressions." Nina rubbed her eyes, checking the time on her bedside clock. "That gives me less than 2 hours. What does he look like?" "Tall, probably in his 40s business suit. He will be on the morning flight from Seattle, number WA457. Just make a sign with his name and meet him at arrivals." Claire's voice grew weaker. "Please, Nina, our entire business depends on landing this contract. We have been struggling for months." Despite her exhaustion, Nina could not refuse. Their event planning company was barely staying afloat after losing 2 major clients last quarter. "All right, I will be there. Just focus on feeling better." After hanging up, Nina rushed through her morning routine. She pulled her dark blonde hair into a practical bun and dressed in the most professional outfit she owned, a navy blazer over a cream blouse with black trousers. Within 30 minutes, she was in her reliable but aging Toyota, heading toward the airport with a hand-lettered sign reading Mr. Patterson resting on the passenger seat. The mix-up. The early morning airport buzzed with travelers despite the hour. Nina positioned herself near the arrivals gate, holding her sign high and scanning every face that emerged. Business travelers streamed past, pulling sleek luggage and checking their phones. After 20 minutes of waiting, a man approached her with confident strides. He was tall, with sandy brown hair touched with silver at the temples, wearing an impeccably tailored gray suit that probably cost more than Nina's monthly rent. His hazel eyes met hers with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "Are you from Stellar Events?" he asked, his voice smooth and cultured. Nina hesitated for only a moment. The timing was right, and he matched Claire's description perfectly. "Yes, I am here to take you to your hotel." The man's lips curved into a slight smile. "Excellent. I appreciate the early accommodation. I am Owen Sheffield." Nina's mind stumbled over the name, but before she could process it fully, he had already turned toward the baggage claim. She followed, assuming Patterson might be his middle name or that Claire had gotten confused in her illness. She quickly texted Claire to confirm, but received no response. At the baggage carousel, Owen retrieved a single leather suitcase that looked both expensive and well-traveled. They walked together through the parking garage, and Nina felt increasingly self-conscious about her modest car. "This is me," she said apologetically as they reached her Toyota. "I am sorry it is not more impressive. There was a situation this morning with our usual vehicle." Owen studied the car for a moment before his expression softened. "No need to apologize. I have taken far worse transportation in my travels." As Nina navigated out of the airport, Owen began asking questions about the upcoming consultation and the Riverside Hotel project. Nina provided vague responses, trying not to reveal that she knew very little about the specific details Claire had been handling. "So the timeline for the corporate gala is still set for next month?" Owen asked, scrolling through his phone. "As far as I know, yes," Nina replied carefully, merging onto the highway. "Claire handles most of those details. I am more involved with the creative design aspects." Owen glanced up sharply. "Claire? I thought I was meeting with the principal planner." Nina felt her stomach drop as realization began to dawn. "You are supposed to meet with Claire Patterson, but she is ill this morning. I am her business partner, Nina Carter." There was a long pause during which Nina could feel Owen's gaze on her. Finally he spoke, his voice measured and calm. "Claire Patterson is not expecting me until tomorrow afternoon." The revelation. Nina's hands tightened on the steering wheel as the full impact hit her. "You are not Mr. Patterson." "No," Owen said, though there was now a hint of amusement in his voice. "I am Owen Sheffield, founder of Sheffield Technologies. I am in town to tour several venues for our annual innovation conference. My appointment with your company is scheduled for tomorrow. Nina felt heat rising to her cheeks. She carefully moved into the right lane, processing the disaster unfolding. Oh no, I am so incredibly sorry. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. Indeed, Owen replied, but he did not sound angry. Who exactly is Mr. Patterson? He is a hotel events coordinator flying in from Seattle. Nina felt mortified. He was supposed to consult with us about a major event. I should have asked more questions, but you mentioned stellar events, and I just assumed. So somewhere in this airport, there is a Mr. Patterson wondering where his ride is, Owen observed. The horrible realization made Nina pull over to the highway shoulder. She grabbed her phone with trembling hands. I need to call Claire immediately. The phone rang 4 times before Claire answered with a weak voice. Nina, how did it go? Claire, I think I picked up the wrong person. Nina's words tumbled out quickly. Is Mr. Patterson's first name actually Patterson, or is that his last name? His name is Gerald Patterson. Why? What happened? Claire's confusion was evident even through her illness. I will call you back. Nina ended the call and turned to Owen, expecting to see irritation or anger. Instead, she found him looking surprisingly relaxed, almost entertained by the situation. Mr. Sheffield, I cannot express how sorry I am for this confusion. I have never been so embarrassed in my entire life. Please call me Owen. He leaned back in his seat with an easy smile. These things happen. Though I must admit, this is certainly a first for me in all my years of business travel. Nina checked the time on her dashboard. We should probably go back to the airport so you can get proper transportation to your hotel. Owen pulled out his phone and glanced at his schedule. I do not have any appointments until 2 this afternoon. He looked at Nina with genuine interest. Perhaps you could show me some notable venues in the city. I always prefer to understand a place before making business decisions there. Nina blinked in surprise. You want me to continue driving you around after I basically kidnapped you from the airport? Owen laughed, a warm, genuine sound that eased some of Nina's tension. I would hardly call it kidnapping when I came willingly. Besides, I am curious about someone who would wake up before dawn to help their business partner. That speaks volumes about character. Nina stared at Owen Sheffield, trying to process his unexpected request. You actually want me to show you around the city after I just accidentally kidnapped you? Owen's hazel eyes sparkled with amusement. When you put it that way, it sounds rather adventurous. Besides, I have learned that the best insights about a city come from locals, not guidebooks or hotel concierges. Nina hesitated, her fingers still gripping the steering wheel. Spending more time with a tech billionaire seemed like courting disaster, especially given their awkward beginning. But something about Owen intrigued her. Unlike the demanding corporate clients she usually dealt with, he seemed genuinely relaxed about the mix-up. I suppose I owe you that much, Nina said finally, pulling back onto the highway. Consider it my apology tour for the confusion. As they drove toward downtown, Nina found herself pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the city she had called home for 30 years. Owen listened with focused attention, asking thoughtful questions that revealed a sincere interest in architecture and urban development. That building there, Nina gestured toward a renovated warehouse, used to be an abandoned textile factory. A local developer transformed it into artist studios and galleries about 5 years ago. It completely revitalized the neighborhood. Owen studied the structure as they passed. Smart adaptive reuse. Too many cities tear down their history instead of reimagining it. He glanced at Nina. Have you done any events there? Several, actually. Nina felt herself relaxing into the conversation. We organized a charity art auction last spring that raised over $50,000 for youth art programs. Impressive. Owen made a note on his phone. My company has been looking for authentic venues for our innovation conference. Somewhere with character, not just another sterile hotel ballroom. Nina's mind immediately began generating ideas, the creative side of her brain engaging despite the unusual circumstances. There are several unique spaces in the arts district that might work. Would you like to see them? Owen checked his watch, an understated timepiece that probably cost more than Nina's entire wardrobe. I have time. Lead the way. Coffee and confessions. 20 minutes later, they sat in a cozy corner of Nina's favorite coffee shop, a converted bookstore in the heart of the arts district. The morning crowd had not yet arrived, giving them a quiet space to talk. Nina ordered her usual cappuccino while Owen requested a simple black coffee. "Tell me about stellar events," Owen said once they settled at a small table by the window. "How did you and Claire start the business?" Nina wrapped her hands around her warm cup, considering how much to share. "We met in college, both studying hospitality management. After graduation, we worked for different event companies, but we kept talking about starting our own business. 3 years ago, we finally took the leap. How has it been going?" Owen's question was gentle, but Nina sensed he already suspected the answer. "Honestly?" Nina decided on honesty. "We are struggling. The first year was strong, but the market is competitive. We lost 2 major clients last quarter when they went with larger firms. Claire and I have been barely keeping things afloat." She paused, realizing she might be oversharing with someone who could potentially become a client. "Sorry, I probably should not be telling you all this." Owen shook his head. "I appreciate the honesty. Too many people in business meetings tell me what they think I want to hear." He took a sip of his coffee. "For what it is worth, I started Sheffield Technologies in my garage with $3,000 and a laptop. I understand the struggle of building something from nothing." Nina looked at him with new interest. "That is not the story the business magazines tell. They make it sound like you had venture capital from the beginning." A shadow crossed Owen's face. "The media prefers certain narratives. The truth is messier and less glamorous. My first 2 years, I lived on ramen noodles and slept 4 hours a night." He smiled, but there was something melancholic in it. "Success came eventually, but it cost me in other ways." "What do you mean?" Nina found herself genuinely curious about the man behind the corporate image. Owen was quiet for a moment, seeming to weigh how much to reveal. "My wife left me 6 years ago. She said I had become someone she did not recognize, too focused on building an empire and not focused enough on building a life." He met Nina's eyes. She was right. The raw honesty in his admission caught Nina off guard. "I am sorry. That must have been difficult." "It was necessary," Owen said. "The divorce forced me to examine what I had become. I had achieved everything I thought I wanted: financial success, industry recognition, influence. But I had lost touch with why I started the company in the first place." "Why did you start it?" Nina asked softly. Owen's expression grew distant, as if looking into the past. "My younger brother Daniel had cerebral palsy. Growing up, I watched him struggle with communication devices that were clunky and frustrating. I wanted to create technology that could genuinely improve lives for people like him." He paused, emotion flickering across his face. "Daniel passed away 10 years ago, but his influence drives everything I do." Nina felt a lump form in her throat. "That is beautiful. Does the public know about this?" Owen shook his head. "I prefer to keep Daniel's memory private. The tech industry can be cynical about personal motivations. People assume I am driven by profit, and I let them think that. It is easier than explaining the truth." An unexpected crisis before Nina could respond. Her phone buzzed insistently. She glanced at the screen and saw multiple missed calls from Claire. "Excuse me, I need to take this." She stepped outside the coffee shop, pressing the phone to her ear. "Claire, what is wrong?" Her business partner's voice was panicked despite her illness. "Nina, Mr. Patterson arrived at the airport and no one was there to meet him. He is furious. He said if we cannot handle a simple pickup, he does not trust us with his hotel's corporate events. We just lost the contract." Nina closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her mistake. "Claire, I am so sorry. This is entirely my fault. What happened?" "Where are you?" Claire's frustration was evident. "I picked up the wrong person." Nina took a deep breath. "I accidentally collected Owen Sheffield instead of Gerald Patterson." There was a long silence. "Owen Sheffield? As in Sheffield Technologies' Owen Sheffield?" Claire's voice rose an octave. "The billionaire who is looking for venue spaces?" "Yes," Nina confirmed quietly. "Nina, do you realize what this means? If we impressed him, this could be huge for our company." Claire started coughing but pushed through. "Is he still with you?" "We are having coffee." Nina glanced back through the window at Owen, who was checking his phone. "But Claire, I do not want to use this mix-up to manipulate a business opportunity." "I am not saying manipulate," Claire countered. "I am saying be professional and show him what we can do. We need this, Nina. We are 2 months away from closing our doors permanently." The desperation in her partner's voice made Nina's chest tighten. "Let me see what I can do." "Feel better, Claire." When Nina returned to the table, Owen looked up from his phone with concern. "Everything all right? You look troubled." Nina sat down slowly, debating how much to share. That was Claire. Apparently, the real Mr. Patterson arrived at the airport and was quite angry that no one met him. "We lost that contract because of my mistake this morning." Owen's expression grew serious. "I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to help?" Nina shook her head. "This is not your problem. I created this mess by not confirming the details properly." Owen studied her for a long moment. "Nina, I have been in business long enough to recognize integrity when I see it. You could have used this morning's mix-up to pitch me your services aggressively, but you have not. That tells me something about your character." "I am just trying to clean up my mistake," Nina said quietly. Owen leaned forward, his voice earnest. "What if I told you that I genuinely need an event planning company for our innovation conference, and that I have been impressed by what I have seen this morning? Would you consider submitting a proposal?" Nina met his gaze, searching for any sign of pity or charity. "I do not want you to feel obligated because of what happened. I do not do anything out of obligation," Owen assured her. "I make business decisions based on capability and trust. You have demonstrated both today." He pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. "Send me a proposal by the end of the week. If it is strong, we can discuss moving forward." Nina took the card, feeling a glimmer of hope she had not felt in months. "Thank you, Owen. This means more than you know." Owen smiled, the warmth returning to his eyes. "Now, you mentioned showing me some unique venues. Shall we continue our tour?" As they left the coffee shop, Nina felt the dynamic between them shifting. What had started as an embarrassing mistake was transforming into something unexpected, a genuine connection that transcended business transactions. Owen Sheffield was not the cold corporate figure she had imagined. He was thoughtful, vulnerable, and surprisingly kind. They spent the next 2 hours exploring the arts district, visiting renovated warehouses, historic theaters, and community spaces that had been transformed into event venues. Owen asked detailed questions about capacity, logistics, and technological infrastructure, but he also seemed genuinely interested in the stories behind each location. At an old railway station converted into an event hall, Owen stood in the center of the vast space, looking up at the original iron framework and skylights. "This is perfect," he said, his voice filled with genuine appreciation. "It has history and character. My team would love hosting our conference here." Nina watched him, seeing past the billionaire exterior to someone who truly cared about creating meaningful experiences. In that moment, standing in the filtered sunlight of the old station, she realized that this unexpected morning had given her something she had not experienced in a long time: genuine hope for the future. As noon approached, Owen suggested lunch at a restaurant overlooking the river. Nina tried to decline, feeling she had already taken up too much of his time, but Owen insisted with a gentle firmness that left no room for argument. The restaurant was elegant but not pretentious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering stunning views of the water. The hostess greeted Owen by name, and Nina realized he must have stayed in the city before. They were seated at a quiet corner table, away from the lunch crowd beginning to filter in. "You come here often?" Nina asked as she studied the menu, trying not to wince at the prices. "I used to," Owen said, a distant look crossing his face. "My brother and I came here on his 18th birthday, about a year before he passed. He loved watching the boats on the river. After he died, I avoided this city for years because the memories were too painful." Nina set down her menu, giving him her full attention. "What changed?" "Time, mostly." Owen's fingers traced the edge of his water glass. "And therapy, if I am being honest. After my divorce, I realized I had been running from grief instead of processing it. I had built this massive company, achieved all this success, but I had never truly dealt with losing Daniel." The waiter arrived to take their orders, providing a brief interruption. Once he left, Nina found herself sharing something she rarely discussed with anyone. "My parents died in a house fire when I was 23, she said quietly. Claire and I had just graduated college. I was supposed to meet them for dinner that night, but I canceled because I had a date with someone I barely remember now. She paused, the old guilt rising in her chest. I've always wondered if things would have been different if I had been there. Owen reached across the table, his hand covering hers in a gesture of comfort. You cannot carry that weight, Nina. Tragedy is not a puzzle where changing one piece would have prevented the whole picture. Logically, I know that, Nina admitted. But the heart does not always listen to logic. No, it does not, Owen agreed, withdrawing his hand as their food arrived. He was quiet for a moment before continuing. After Daniel died, I threw myself into work. I told myself I was honoring his memory by succeeding, but really I was just avoiding the pain. My wife tried to reach me, but I had built walls so high that even the people who loved me could not get through. Is that why you keep your charitable work private? Nina asked. The question had been forming in her mind throughout the morning. Owen looked surprised. How did you know about that? Nina smiled slightly. I may have Googled you while you were in the restroom earlier. There were some mentions of anonymous donations to disability advocacy groups and assistive technology research. Owen's expression grew guarded, the openness from moments before shuddering slightly. I prefer to keep that separate from my public image. Why? Nina pressed gently. Most wealthy people broadcast their philanthropy. It is good public relations. Owen set down his fork, considering his words carefully. Because the moment people know you have money and a cause you care about, everything becomes transactional. Every conversation, every relationship, every interaction is colored by what they think they can get from you. He met her eyes. This morning was refreshing because you had no idea who I was. You treated me like a person, not a walking checkbook. The uncomfortable truth Nina felt a pang of guilt, thinking about Claire's earlier phone call and the pressure to pursue Owen as a client. I need to be honest with you about something. Owen leaned back, his expression neutral but attentive. I am listening. After Claire called, she suggested I use this situation to secure your business. Nina forced herself to maintain eye contact. She is not wrong that we desperately need a client like you. Our company is failing, Owen. We have maybe 2 months of operating capital left. The proposal you asked for could literally save our business, and you are telling me this because... Owen's tone was unreadable. Because I do not want there to be any deception between us, Nina said firmly. If you offer us this contract, I want it to be because we are genuinely the right fit, not because you feel sorry for me or guilty about the mix-up this morning. Owen studied her for a long moment, and Nina felt her heart hammering in her chest. She had potentially just destroyed the best opportunity her company had seen in months, but she could not build something meaningful on dishonesty. Finally, Owen smiled, genuine warmth returning to his features. That is exactly why I want to work with you, Nina. In a world where everyone is calculating angles and presenting polished versions of themselves, your honesty is remarkable. Before Nina could respond, Owen's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. Excuse me, I need to take this. It is my executive assistant. He stepped away from the table, and Nina watched through the window as his body language changed. His shoulders tensed and his free hand gestured sharply as he spoke. Whatever the conversation was about, it clearly was not good news. When Owen returned to the table, the easy warmth from earlier had vanished. His face was set in hard lines, his jaw clenched. We need to go, he said abruptly. Something has come up that requires my immediate attention. Of course, Nina said, quickly gathering her belongings. Owen threw several bills on the table without waiting for the check and strode toward the exit. Nina hurried to keep up, confused by the sudden transformation. In the car, Owen was silent, his fingers flying across his phone screen. The comfortable atmosphere from earlier had evaporated, replaced by a cold tension that filled the small space. Nina drove toward his hotel, stealing glances at him between watching the road. Owen, is everything all right? She finally asked. One of my companies is facing a hostile takeover attempt, he said without looking up from his phone. I need to handle it immediately. I am sorry, Nina said, though she was not sure what else to offer. They reached the Grand Hotel in silence. Owen gathered his belongings and reached for his wallet. Let me compensate you for your time today, he said, pulling out several $100 bills. Nina felt as if she had been slapped. After everything they had shared, he was reducing their time together to a transaction. "That is not necessary," she said, her voice colder than she intended. "I am not a taxi service." Owen paused, seeming to register her tone. He looked at her properly for the first time since the phone call. "Nina, I apologize." That was thoughtless. "It is fine," Nina said, though it was not. "You should go handle your emergency." Owen hesitated, his hand on the door handle. "About the proposal, I meant what I said. Please send it to me by Friday." "Sure," Nina replied, not trusting herself to say more. She watched him walk into the hotel, feeling the loss of something she could not quite name. The connection they had built over the morning felt fragile now, overshadowed by the reminder of who Owen Sheffield really was, a billionaire businessman whose world operated on completely different principles than hers. An unexpected discovery. Nina drove home in a daze, replaying the day's events. She had gone from accidentally kidnapping a billionaire to sharing intimate conversations to being dismissed with cash. The emotional whiplash left her exhausted. Back at her apartment, she collapsed on her worn couch and opened her laptop. Despite her hurt feelings, she needed to research Sheffield Technologies properly if she was going to submit a serious proposal. As she scrolled through articles about Owen's business empire, something caught her attention. There was a small news item from 3 years ago about a technology grant program for schools serving students with disabilities. The program provided cutting-edge assistive devices and training for teachers. It had been established by an anonymous donor, but the article mentioned that Sheffield Technologies had provided the technology at cost. Nina dug deeper, finding more connections. A research foundation studying cerebral palsy treatments had received a massive anonymous endowment the same year Sheffield Technologies went public. A network of community centers offering free technology classes to disabled adults had received equipment donations that matched Sheffield Technologies' product lines. The pattern was clear. Owen had been quietly funneling his wealth into causes related to his brother's condition, but he had done it so carefully that almost no one knew. This was not about public relations or tax benefits. This was about genuine grief channeled into meaningful action. Her phone rang, interrupting her research. It was Claire, sounding slightly better but still weak. "How did it go with Sheffield?" her partner asked. Nina filled her in on the day's events, including Owen's request for a proposal and the awkward ending. Claire was ecstatic despite her illness. "Nina, this is incredible. If we land this contract, we are saved. You need to pull out all the stops on this proposal." "I know," Nina said. "I am working on it now." After hanging up, Nina stared at her laptop screen. She could create a safe, professional proposal that hit all the standard points. Or she could take a risk and show Owen that she truly understood what mattered to him. She opened a new document and began typing, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Instead of leading with logistics and pricing, she focused on creating meaningful experiences that honored innovation while remaining accessible. She proposed incorporating assistive technology demonstrations into the conference, partnering with disability advocacy groups, and ensuring the venue was not just ADA compliant, but genuinely welcoming. It was a risk. She was revealing that she had researched him beyond the surface level. But after the honesty they had shared that morning, anything less felt like a betrayal of that connection. The message 3 days later. Nina was reviewing vendor contracts when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Nina Carter?" The voice was familiar, warm, and slightly tentative. "Owen?" Her heart jumped unexpectedly. "I received your proposal," he said. There was a pause, and Nina held her breath. "It is the most thoughtful submission I have ever received. How did you know about my brother's condition?" Nina decided on honesty as she had from the beginning. "I researched your charitable giving patterns after you left. I noticed the connections to disability advocacy and assistive technology. I hope that was not overstepping." "No," Owen said quietly. It was observant and brave. "Most people would have played it safe with a standard pitch. I figured if we were going to work together, it should be based on genuine understanding," Nina explained. "Your conference should reflect what you actually care about, not just what looks impressive." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Owen spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "Would you have dinner with me tonight? Not to discuss business, just to talk." "I would like that," Nina said, surprised by how much she meant it. That evening, they met at a small restaurant far from the corporate towers and luxury hotels. Owen looked different in casual clothes, more relaxed and approachable. They talked for hours, moving past the awkwardness of their last meeting. Owen apologized for his abrupt departure, explaining that the hostile takeover attempt had triggered old fears about losing control. "After my divorce, after losing Daniel, I became obsessed with maintaining control over every aspect of my life," he admitted. "Business was something I could manage and predict. Personal connections were not, and now," Nina asked gently, "now I am trying to remember that the best things in life are the ones you cannot control or predict," Owen said, meeting her eyes. "Like accidentally being picked up by the wrong person at an airport." Nina laughed, feeling the tension of the past few days dissolve. "So does this mean Stellar Events gets the contract?" Owen smiled. "The contract was yours after I read the proposal. This dinner is about something entirely different." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "This is about two people who met under ridiculous circumstances and discovered something unexpected." "And what is that?" Nina asked, though her heart already knew the answer. "A genuine connection," Owen said simply. "Something neither of us was looking for, but both of us need." As Nina looked into his eyes, she realized that the wrong turn she had taken at the airport that morning had led her exactly where she needed to be. Sometimes the best destinations are the ones you never planned to reach. 3 months later, Stellar Events successfully hosted Sheffield Technology's Innovation Conference. The event featured groundbreaking assistive technology demonstrations and raised over $200,000 for disability research. But for Nina and Owen, the real success was measured in quiet moments, shared laughter, and the knowledge that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as mistakes. Their story became a reminder that wrong turns can lead to right places, that vulnerability creates deeper connections than perfection ever could, and that love often arrives when you are too busy living your life to go looking for it. The end.